Okay, and here we go with the next build. This really nice, old school, stock service pickup truck. So, if you're looking for the actual name, it's the AMT 1950 Chevrolet 3100 pickup. But I saw this box art, and saying a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, there you go. That says a lot. Not everybody is into the old school stock style pickup trucks, but some of them I think just looked so neat, and this cover art just caught my eye, and had to have it. So here it is, and I'll tell you right off the bat, this is exactly the way I want to build this. I just think this is really neat. And what's nice with this kit is, even though it is not a new tooling or a new kit or newly manufactured kit, when I opened the box, this was like a gift that kept on giving. And now I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So first, we'll take a look at instructions. We have some good old fold out, straightforward basic assembly guide here. Motor, wheels, chassis, attaching everything, interior, and off to the races. Now, let's look at the plastic. And there are a couple of things with this kit that when I unbagged it, immediately just warmed my modeling hobby heart. So as I go through, I will point those out. So first off, let's take a look. We have this really nicely molded cab, and nice and straight and true, which is really cool. But we got some nice vents on the side. We have some decent door seams, so we'll be able to highlight those. Just nice, and just looking at it now. Okay, this is actually a 2017 tooling. Well, there we go. Not as old as I thought. And the reason I thought it was a little bit older is we do have some flash from the molding, which is usually a sign that the tooling that has been around for a while. But that aside, this was a surprise number one, separate frame. I love when kits have a separate frame, because you can just get so much extra relief and detail than having a one-piece molded frame and floor pan. But if you take a look at that, that's a nice unit there. We have also, it's a step side pickup, and I am so happy we have the separate fenders. We have separate floorboards, because this is going to make painting so much easier, especially to get to the two-tone, hit the camera there, the two-tone appearance. So the front fenders will have to be masked, but the rear, because they're separate, they can just be painted. So yay, that makes life easy. And then moving on, here are some more surprises. We have a really nicely detailed firewall. All of our control pedals are separate. That's really cool. We have a nicely molded dashboard. All the vent grates. We do have raised detail for the 2 gauges. It's not a race car, it's an old pickup. So, and then here is another thing that I was really happy to see. We do not have a bucket style interior. There are separate door cards, and here they are. And even though it is an old pickup and it's not a crazy interior, it's not a crazy interior in terms of luxury or anything, but this is why I love separate door cards, because look at the relief on the molding in the door, the cranks, everything is really prominent, really sticks out. One, it makes it a lot easier to do the painting and detailing, but two, it just adds so much to the final presentation of the kit. We also have a nice wood grain for the pickup bed. I was really happy to see that too. Even our tailgate has the raised Chevrolet lettering, so if I want to go in there and do painting to bring those out, it's going to be really straightforward to do that. Then we have some beautiful moldings for the engine. Our inline motor there, old school, but all nicely detailed pieces. Yes, there is some flash here and there, but it's minor, no big deal. We have separate front fender skirts for in the engine bay, so that again, this will make painting easier because we can do those separately. Okay, we have some really nicely molded leaf springs here. That's good stuff. Our differential wheels. There is no custom version of this kit to build, so we just get the stock wheels, but those are nicely done. Wheel backs. We do get as an extra the nice big visor for the front. Neat little exhaust system there. For the chrome, here was another nice surprise. We have the front grille, and it is through molded, so you don't have to paint black in there and try to pretend that it's through. It's through, so really nice. Even the hubcaps have Chevrolet molded on them, and we get separate rings for the chrome treatment around the wheels. Now, this is just great stuff. Another nice surprise. You know, AMT, among the model kit companies, AMT just does really gorgeous tires, and they do not disappoint here. Even though the kit shows the black wall, we have the white wall on the reverse, and I will definitely be using those because I think that's just going to look really nice, really add to the old school stock feel. And then final nice surprise of the kit, we get clear red for the tail lights. We have our clear parts, all separate windows, so we won't have a big clear insert, which yes would be easier to assemble, but looks much more realistic with the separate windows in the cab. And we even get a whole sprue of amber clear for lights and various markers. There are some options in building the truck in terms of its service appearance, so those are there. And normally, you know, I like to leave the decals in, but I wanted to take these out to have a look because everything else in the kit was looking so great, and the decals just added to that surprise and delight. I mean, look at these wood grain decals for the side placards on the bed. This is beautiful, and we can put the logos on there, different lettering for the trunk. You know, the only thing it does not have are, as I said, are those gauge decals, but it's two small gauges, and the molding is prominent enough, can pick up that detail no problem. You get all these nifty license plates, so really nice. So looking forward to doing this. You know, it's always nice when you open a kit. You know, obviously you buy the kit and you're like, wow, you know, this looks like a nice one, gonna go and build this one. But then you open it up and it surpasses your expectations as to what you thought was going to be in the box. So, you know, this is an AMT kit, so they do have the sprue layout printed on the bottom of the inner box, and here that is. But you know, it's not always a way to fully appreciate what you're getting in the kit in terms of the detail in the parts and how they're going to look. So this looks to build really well. Hopefully it does. You know, I was looking for something a little bit simpler after all the detail and all the parts that went into the main British Mark V tank. And even though this is a little bit more than I thought would be in the box, I took a count. There's over 120 parts here to build this pickup truck, which is fairly high for an old school pickup. Usually the parts count is a little bit lower because the vehicles are relatively simple, but loads of nice detail here. So should build up great. Let's hope so. So I'm going to get started cleaning up the parts and moving into some painting to get some color. All right, so of course I will do my standard thank you for watching. Please do consider to subscribe, like, share it with all your hobby friends. So yes, but I do say thank you for watching, and now I will get to it. All right. Okay, so here we are with Snow Report, and I just thought I would talk a little bit about this. Normally, when I do my painting, there's a lot of sprue painting, painting the parts still on the sprue in combination with spray painting, not necessarily in that order. But one of the things I just thought I would discuss quickly is, handling your sprues. And as you can see, a lot of the debris here is actually just sprue removal and trimming the sprues. So to give you an example why I do this, and this is something you'll probably see in quite a few build videos, people either remove all the parts completely from the sprues, which, especially if you're new to the hobby, I really do not recommend, because you need these handy things called part numbers. And sometimes in instructions, parts can look quite similar, or you may not be able to tell the orientation between like a right side part and a left side part, and it's just unnecessary confusion. Plus, sprues are a real handy way for holding things. But point being, notice I've trimmed away the sprue. All right, so why do that? Well, for one thing, obviously you have a lot more access to the parts as you go to paint them. And two, you can get in there, and for parts like this radiator, there was a parting line all around the radiator. And the parting line is, when the two molds come together, maybe they're not quite perfect, and instead of what should be a flush surface, you end up with a little step or a little line of excess plastic that runs along there. By trimming away the sprue, one, it makes it a lot easier to get in and clean that up. Two, I trim the sprues away from the parts with a little bit of strategy in mind. The thought being that I want to get rid of attachment points on the sprue where I may need to paint, and then where's another good example here, and then I can get past the concern for nub parts when I cut the parts free. So here's my example, the frame. Now the frame was on here, and actually it was this way. So the frame was on this sprue. Not only were there a couple of these huge attachment points, but there was quite a bit of cleanup to do on this, just quite a bit in terms of different spots. The part was actually pretty clean, but by getting it off the sprue and cleaning everything up beforehand, now when I spray this, I'm not going to have any nub parts, because of course when you paint, whether it be spray or brush, you know, when you cut the piece free, you have the exposed nub marks now. Now, like on this piece, the only ones I left are the ones where a part is going to attach, so that will be hidden. So it's just an approach to try to limit some of your work after the fact and make your life a little bit easier. Last thing I wanted to say before hitting the spray is, you know, the frame. I just wanted to point this out because they did a really nice job molding this one-piece frame, and this is why I really like having kits with separate frame, separate door cards. You know, this kit has both of that, so that's why in the beginning I was like, oh, it's like Christmas morning, you know, because if you look at all the detail on this frame, you know, all the frame members, it's really nice. It's really nice. And then this thing can be painted and mounted. Now, the other thing is, because this is such a nice piece, I was just going to paint this black, but I think I'm going to paint this the same blue as the body color, because there's a lot of detail parts that are going to be attached to this. And by painting them contrasting colors, maybe you do those in a semi-gloss black or steel or something like that, all of this is going to have contrast under here, which means all those details will then pop. You know, is that 100% color accurate to the truck? No. Do I care? No. You know, I've also often said in my builds, I am more interested in color separation than color accuracy per se. And I do that, just to reiterate the point, I do that because by having the color separation, it helps highlight the details. Because if everything's the same color, you know, you lose it, especially flat black, or even in this case, front undercarriage, if everything is semi-gloss black, you know, whenever everything is the same color, it just kind of, things start to disappear. So since I am building this stock, but sort of as like a well-kept show truck, I don't mind doing that. And, you know, I'm not going to beat up the tires because they have these beautiful white walls. So this truck will have a new look to it. So, you know, you could say, if you want to live in the fictional land of your hobby, that, oh, this was an old truck and then someone refurbished it, or, you know, brought it back to, you know, like its original self, but decided to do a little bit extra, or whatever the case, you know, it doesn't really matter. You build and color your model the way you want. The only asterisk I would put on that is, you know, when I talk about color separation, it is still at least I try to do it, still within bounds of what you might see under there. So, you know, maybe this frame was painted body color because while the truck was being restored, everything was off. So the people restoring it decided to dress it up by doing the frame blue color. But I'm not going to introduce oddball colors, you know, like greens and purples and all these different things, because then it starts to look like a clown mobile or, you know, it starts to look toy-ish, and I'm not interested in either of those things. So that's it. Just a few things I felt worth mentioning because, like I said, I've talked about them in other videos, but why not talk about them again? So now it's time to paint. Okay, so here we are back with the color. All right, so obviously been doing some painting. Clearly some of the detail painting is not complete yet, as you'll see momentarily, but I thought I would step in right here and just point out a few small things. So, first thing is a little challenge I ran into while I was doing my spraying. Now, I'll show you the cab right here. I've done a little bit of detail work on this. Did the door handles, started on the windshield wipers. I used my Gundam marker to get in and do a black line around the door frames to do some detail there. But when I sprayed this, now this is a Rustoleum paint for the blue and a Tamiya paint for the orange. You know, cleaned it up, primed it, sprayed it, and first with the Rustoleum, I noticed the next morning when I checked my paint, it had like a crackle finish to it. So I sanded, resprayed, happened again, sanded, resprayed, and then it was fine. So I remasked, I moved to the orange, sprayed, same thing. Well, what it turned out was, you know, had to sand and respray to get it all straight. Now, I left just a little bit on here, and perhaps it will be visible. You might see a little bit of the crackle left on here. And I was really kind of stumped what was going on because I don't have a paint box. My garage is my paint box. But I sprayed, it was, 65, 70 degrees in the garage when I sprayed. I didn't have wind or dirt or anything going through. I had cleaned, I had primed. Why was my paint crackling? Well, I checked back on the weather, and also because I get up very early for the start of my workday, found out that each of those nights the temperature had dropped down to about 40 degrees or so, which is kind of chilly for spray painting. And the reason for the crackle, after I did a little searching online, that effect happens when the paint coats as you go back and forth with your spray. Each pass is a layer of paint. So you get that crackle because of the temperature change. The different coats of paint are drying at different rates, and that is magnified by the drop in temperature in which they're trying to dry. So you get a lower coat of paint drying at one rate, and an outer coat of paint, which is exposed to the colder air, it starts to contract over the lower paint, and boom, the crackle happens. So, lesson to be learned, check the temperature at night before you spray in the evening. So, yeah, a little bit of mystery, but I just thought I would point that out for people like me who are maybe not quite aware of that. The other thing I wanted to talk about was door panel painting. All right. Now you may remember, which I guess is only a few minutes ago in the video, but for me it's 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago or so. I talked about how I was going to paint these inner door panels, and looking at the part, because there was this mold texture, I thought this was supposed to represent material, and the flat part up top was metal. But I went on the internet and Google, of course. I checked out some images, excuse me, some images of the truck. I just typed in the Chevy, what was this? The Chevy 1950 3100 pickup. And there were pictures of refurbished, to original restored interiors. And actually, this is a stamped molding detail in the metal door of the cab, and the inset, which I thought was the metal, was material. So there we go. A little bit of research can be a lot of help. Now, as I was saying, I didn't do a whole lot of detailed painting yet. I did do some of the detailing on the wheel, which was just to use, again, my Gundam marker to fill in the black slots of the wheels and to give you an idea how that's going to look. The wheel will sit in the white wall, and there's that little chrome hubcap will sit on top, and that should look really nice. And as long as I don't lose my pieces, there we go. Okay. I did some detailing on the firewall here, just some pretty basic stuff, outlining the wires with a black marker and going in there with some metallic silver and steel to highlight some of the brackets and hardware. Similar deal, just with the black marker on these inner fender walls, because they do have this wiring detail. I added that in. Did a little bit of detail painting on the engine because this is just going to be stock. It is supposed to be in this grayish color, which I just used my Rustoleum Gray Prime done, and just did some highlighting details, semi-gloss, flat black, some metallics, but I'll finish that up when I assemble it. So that's where it's at, and now I will start doing the assembly. Alrighty. into the fender, obviously, and the truck is coming along just dandy. um, very happy with the way the kit has been assembling. And in the opening I mentioned how some of this kit was like Christmas morning because of little surprises in there in terms of the detail and whatnot. And I will go back to that and say it's almost like the kit's punching above its weight, so to say, because it's such a nice kit. As I was building it, I kept thinking, wow, it goes together so well. There's so much nice little detail on the parts, and we'll take a little bit closer look here in a moment. But I didn't have any problems with misalignments or bad fittings. Flash was a bare minimum. Everything went together okay. There's only one very minor issue that I have, which is I am just maybe half a millimeter or a millimeter out of true on how it sits. So I do have a little lift across this axis. And I thought I had, straightened the frame out. I was working on it. It seemed to end up being a little more twisted. And then I straightened it again, and the wobble was gone. But after putting on the bed and the cab, now there's just this little piece back. But that I won't attribute to the kit. Yes, that's the parts. There was a warp in the frame, but I guess I wasn't diligent enough on approaching that to take that out of the build. But it is very minor, and unless you sit and actually start tipping it and playing with it, you're really not going to notice. And here, there's just that little bit right there. Not going to worry about that. But as I said, the detail is very nice, and we'll take a little bit of a closer look here. That engine compartment, stock engine, beautiful inside the cab. You did see while I was assembling the interior, I did do some detail painting on the gauges. That was just a black face on the gauge, and then dry brushed in white the markings within the gauge face, and then the trim around it in metallic silver. The underbody, it is a stock truck, so it's not going to be some big crazy thing, but all the detail is there. As I said, the parts have really nice molding detail on them. So we get the leaf springs, and everything's looking good. We even have the wood grain on the bed on the underside. I showed you how I did the wood grain for the bed, and I think that came out rather nice. Now, what I do want to talk about is you'll notice these 4 posts in the bed. Now, they are not part of the instructions. Obviously, those are add-ons. And the reason I did that, we have these sideboards with these beautiful wood grain decals. Now, I painted the piece, the same color I used for the interior, this stone pebble, I believe it is, from Krylon, because I wanted this to be relatively light. My concern was I did the bed and it's quite a bit darker, but with the wood tone decal, it's close enough. And hey, it's a display thing, so if it's a different color wood, you want this to be more visible. I had considered doing these pieces the same way as I did the bed, but then it would have been very dark, instead of using the decal, using paint to create the wood effect. And this decal, the blue text in particular, would have been lost on there. But the reason I put the posts in there, these pieces, you're just supposed to glue along the edge of the bed with no support, just on a butt seam. And, that's not really good. First of all, it's a very weak way to attach something. They will be, at any little bump, they'll snap off. So what I did, I put these 4 posts in, and I will glue this to that. And now I also get a little lift off of the bed. So there's some separation there. Now, as far as what I'm going to do, because Another odd thing, I noticed the decal does not go all the way to the edge of the placard piece. And that's why it looks a little silly, like the wood grain just sort of stops. So what I'm going to do with these, use some of my L angle. I'm going to create a picture frame, so to speak, attaching to the back, reaching over the front, and then I can just go and with a marker draw a black line around to cover up that border of the light wood grain, and it's all set. And then the L frame, as it sits there, that will be what attaches here, which is also going to allow me to build a little cross brace here. And then I thought I could add in these two marker lights from this nice tree of yellow lights that they give you. So that is the only big thing, not that it's big, but you know, extra thing that I am doing with this. Otherwise, stock out of the box. The instructions are pretty good because the kit goes together well. It's really not you know, anything to note here. The only thing I would say is on this step, they tell you to put the wheel wells in first, the fender fillers in here, and here we go, sorry, fender fillers, then the wheel wells go in, then they tell you to put the firewall in after the interior is in. Well, the interior tub kind of sandwiches against those inner wells, which would have made putting in the firewall very difficult. So I did it opposite way. I put the interior in, then I did the firewall as I showed in the build. So and that really, you know, it's just a matter of doing your test fits, seeing how the thing goes together, and taking it from there. Also, in terms of how things go together, the clear parts, wonderful. I just went around and did a border on them with my Molotow pen, and glued them in there with my clear parts cement, and they were set. The fit was very good on the windows. Now you'll noticed when I was doing the build, I was switching between a number of different adhesives here, different cements, and I just want to explain quick once again why I do that. So for times when I was working around areas that were painted, maybe small contact points, super glue, because it will eat through the paint and give me a quick, strong bond that is welding the plastic. When I have seams that I want the paint to, the cement to really penetrate and get in there, and I can also do some scraping, I use the extra thin and dab it on with the brush. When I'm doing some joints where I needed working time, mostly you saw me use this when I did the interior mount to the cab and the inner fender wells and the firewall, because there was quite a bit of juggling there to get that all lined up, so I couldn't have something that was going to bond quick. These guys bond very quickly. This gives me some more working time, so I went with this. And of course, clear parts cement for the clear parts. So there we go. Now, that's all of that. In terms of what's left to assemble, it's just this. We have the two running boards for the side. We have some chrome parts, bumpers, the little insignia trims, license plates, side mirror, and then some more decals. So, and of course, I have to frame these guys, which I will show how that goes, and then that'll be it. Okay, so very happy with this already. So we'll see how it shapes up. And one last thing I wanted to show you, you know, the hood is not hinged, so I wanted to see how it would fit. And boy, oh boy, look how that drops in there. That is awesome. So definitely liking that. Okay, so I'm gonna finish this up, and yes, I'll show you how I do that, and then it'll be final build reveal. Okay. Okay, here we go. It's final build reveal time for the AMT Chevy 3100 pickup truck. This was a good build. Very happy with the way the kit came out. And as I said in the beginning, I was going to try to stick right with this cover art. And aside from a few little deviations, which you've pretty well seen along the way, that's where I went. And here we go. Alrighty. So, what a neat little machine. As I had said after the paint and doing a good chunk of the assembly, what a nice kit. You know, it goes together well, the pieces fit, the detail is good on the pieces. I had mentioned that in some ways it's almost like the kit is punching above its weight, so to speak. I just want to expand on that, explain a little better what I mean. You know, this is basically an average kit in terms of expense. I believe it's about $30 or so, which is shockingly going price for model kits these days as of me filming this video. However, when you start to get more into like the quote-unquote enthusiast kits, you know, typically these are from the makers of a lot of the military models. You drop down to 1/35th scale and the price goes up by 50% or double that for a vehicle. Now, that's quite a difference, obviously, but even though this kit isn't quite at the level of those kits, it's not meant to be, it wasn't designed to be. However, I say that in a way this kit is punching above its weight because I feel in building it, it came pretty close for what you pay for this kit and what's inside of it to one of those, you know, again, enthusiast style or pro builder type kits, whatever you want to call them. So that's a huge plus. So good job, people at AMT, on the design of the kit. You know, sometimes with AMT kits, you know, there can be criticism, and some I've said on my own of the way the parts fit, and really that's not anything else than the fact that a lot of the kits are reissues of sometimes you know, 50-60-year-old molds. Some retooling is done to clean up the parts a little bit, maybe add some more detail. But this kit, now I believe I had said in the beginning, the date stamped inside the cab was 2017. I don't know if that's when the molds originate or not, but whatever the case, who cares? It builds well, and that's the important part. So, you know, when it comes down to it, you can debate these things 100 different ways, but really the final summation or the final argument, pro or con, against any kit is how well does it build, and you know, what can you get out of it, and what does it take to get what you want out of it. You know, this, one of the things I thought while building this kit, now obviously this is how I chose to do it, but even building it, I was tempted a couple of times to just say, you know, let's start going crazy with this thing and wire up the engine and do other things. You know, I had a couple of ideas for the back of the truck here, but I kind of wanted to do this build as close to out of the box as I could, because, you know, I like to do these kits for the most part when I build, you know, out of the box, because one, I feel like you shouldn't be obligated to buy a kit and then buy all sorts of other stuff to make the kit work. At that point, I would say, manufacturer, do the rest of your job when making the kit. But two, because I am, you know, gearing a lot of this to people who are coming back to the hobby or new to the hobby, I want to show what you can get building it out of the box or as close to it. And like I said, in some videos I go into more things, I add more things, but again, that is to kind of give you an idea of what you can do or extra things you can get with a little bit of extra effort. So anyway, back on point. So There are just a few things I would like to point out. I had talked about putting these little yellow indicator lights up on the back rail of the bed that I had put in, this white piece. Obviously, that doesn't come up high enough, and that was a decision. If I had run the post up higher, this I thought would have looked a little silly back there, so I kept it at the height I did. I put the lights up front, and I think that's just fine. Second, the back of the gate here, that white Chevrolet, they do provide on the decal sheet the lettering to do that in several different colors. If you want to do the truck with a different color scheme, they do give you the letters in different colors. However, when I was looking at the gate, the way it was molded, it was a nice relief on the letters from the background plane of the gate. So rather than mess around with painting them or doing decals, I just took my scraper and scraped the paint off, and that was it. So very nice, simple solution. You know how much I like that. Of course, third thing, adding the styrene to make the frame for the sign placards on the bed. So I showed that. That was, pretty straightforward thing to do. And really, those are the only extras in the build, was adding that square stock and the angle stock. One thing I noticed when I did the decals, the door decals, on the cover art, we'll bring that back. You can see they are significantly larger in relation to the door than the actual decal in the kit, which I didn't completely appreciate till I put the decal on the door, and it's almost like it's in a different scale. It's still a really nice decal, and it looks good on there, but I just thought there would be more of it. So that was a little bit of a curious thing. In terms of also where I deviated from the cover, I did go with the white wall tires. Love those. I think that looks really nice. I left off the chrome rings because I just thought it would be a chrome hubcap, a blue wheel, a chrome ring, a white wall, the black tire. It just felt like circles on circles of contrast and color, and just a little too much. So I left the chrome rings off. You do get a nice little stash of spare parts from the kit. There's all those nifty yellow indicator lights that you can save for other things. As I said, the chrome rings. I didn't use the front board for the bumper. I wanted just a simple classic chrome bumper on there. So I have that piece left over. There's a big visor you could put across the front windshield, exterior visor. I left that off because I want the light in the cab to highlight the contrasting orange I did for the dashboard, and some of the detail painting I did in there. And just as it's going around, I think the way this framing worked out, that looks really nice. And yeah, I did run the orange onto the lead of the fender and under that fender filler there. I just thought it would be nice to try to carry an orange line with just the door breaking it up. On the box cover, they do those in the blue. And otherwise, there it is. So, like I said, really nice kit. Goes together great. I'm going to let it take a spin here, and then we'll take a little closer look at things. So, yeah, can't recommend this one enough. I always feel like building, pickup trucks is it's like a classic thing in modeling. I don't know why, but, there's a million different pickup truck models, and just sitting here looking around at my stock, I have a few more different pickups, but, different pickup models on my shelves. So now let's look into some of the detailing here. As I had mentioned, we have this really nice engine bay with that stock engine in there. That looks great. Underside, we have a very nicely detailed frame, and I'm really happy that I chose to do that contrasting blue under there. Highlight the suspension, the shocks, things like that. All those little goodies. We have in the interior, you know, some nice, whoops, try to keep it in frame here. Got some nice detail in there. That's why I went with the orange dashboard, so that some of that would be visible, the gauge painting and whatnot. That's all in there. I had mentioned during the build, you know, those little foot pedals that go in the interior. You know, I love extra pieces for detail. I would have to say those, it's a debatable benefit. They look great in there, but once you put the interior into the truck, boy, it's almost impossible to see them down in there. If you go with a different color interior and you do a lighter color floor, the black pedals in contrast, they may be visible under there, but you'd really have to go hunting and looking for them. And that's it. So all the things I have to say about that. And we'll drop that hood back on, and there we go. It's a beautiful kit. Very happy with the way it came out. Again, I could sit here and go over the same compliments over and over, but I will spare you that misery. But and just let it go around. So that's that build. You know, this was also really welcome after doing the Meng Mark V British heavy tank from World War I. You know, that was, I did a lot of modification on that. You know, building the base, you know, having it so I could open the hull up with the lighting inside and all of this sort of stuff. It was nice to get back to doing something simple and straightforward, and that just went together. Not that the Meng didn't go together well, that kit fit together beautifully, but I mean, you know, going together in terms of, you know, manageable parts count. At 120, like I said, this is a lot for a pickup, especially an older pickup, which tends to be a little bit, in real life, a simpler construction. But, you know, you don't necessarily notice extra parts count when the kit goes together well. If a kit's fighting you and every little piece is a debate and a concern, and how's it going to fit, and is it the right spot, you know, then a high parts count can become a test of patience. But when you have this type of parts count and it goes together well, you know, it's just a joy to build. So I will leave it at that. AMT 3100 Chevrolet pickup, awesome kit. There are so many different ways you could build this. There's so many things you could do with this. Boy, you probably spend all day just talking about things you could do with the kit. I won't though. I did this and I'm very happy with it. So that's it. Next up, I will be doing a build I've been having on the side for a long time, deciding what exactly I wanted to do with it, until I remembered why I bought it in the first place. So that one will be next, and you'll just have to stay tuned for that. Okay, so that's my teaser, and thank you for watching. Again, please do, you know, like, subscribe, share with your hobby friends and all that, and I hope you found it worthwhile. So in the meantime, enjoy your hobby. Alrighty, goodbye.